I want to begin by asking, because obviously you have a prior relationship with Lynn, being in some of her films and kind of working together. Can you talk about, I understand you had kind of the idea for this film. Can you talk a little bit about that and the process of it kind of coming together?
Yeah, well, Hump Day was one of my favorite creative experiences of my life, and about a year later after we had made it, I knew that Lynn was stalling on one of the bigger budget movies that she wanted to make, and I was starting to get offers to do things as an actor, but they weren't quite what I wanted. And I have this document on my computer that has all these movie ideas that I've ever thought of. There's over 100 of them, and of course most of them I'm never going to make with Jay. And the Dead Brother one in particular, I really didn't want to make with Jay because I don't think we could find any comedy in that. And so I pitched it to Lynn. I said, hey, I just love making Hump Day. Do you want to do another little movie together? And she said, yeah, this sounds great. And she went and roped Emily Blunt into it somehow, because no one can say no to Lynn, apparently. And then, I don't know, within like 6 months or so, we were shooting.
Was there a script, or was it was very improvised?
It was just a pitch that I made to her initially, and then we started having these creative conversations over the telephone, talking about backstory and different plot points that could happen, and throwing them out. And then we had a big summit in Los Angeles over the course of a weekend where we really hashed out the story and what it would be, And then Lynn went home and banged out this big treatment that had some dialogue, some story elements, and that is what we shot from. But it's pretty much everything that you see on screen is improvised, but you're improvising the whole narrative. You're not going for jokes necessarily. You're kind of making up the dialogue as you go, basically.
How were Emily and Rose as far as coming into and doing that process? Had they done a lot of improvise in their past?
Emily's first movie is this incredible movie called My Summer of Love, and that whole movie is improvised. And so she did it when she was like 18.
Okay.
But hadn't done it since, but she's very good. And Rose hadn't done very much of it at all. So they were, I think, a little nervous going into it.
And with you and Lynn having that relationship, that background, I'm wondering if they were a little intimidated, or...
They may have been, but you wouldn't have known it.
Right.
I'm not just saying this isn't like a press answer. Like, oh, they were incredible. Like, they really were incredible.
You mentioned the brother aspect, and obviously you're very close with your own brother. I'm curious, are you a method actor in the sense that, are you pulling any inspiration from, like, what would I feel like if my brother died? Or do you not even think about that? And you just, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
To a certain degree. I'm not like, I don't have like a spirit animal for my emotions, but if there was one, no.
You're like, what kind of tree would I be if my brother was a tree? Yeah.
I'm all ficus. Ficus. I think what it was we knew this movie had this form of this like capery Shakespearean bed-switching comedy.
Okay.
And that could very quickly turn into like a 90-minute episode of Three's Company, And we wanted to give it an emotional base. So that for me really was like the purpose of Hannah's really rough breakup and my recently deceased brother was just a way to color all of those scenes and give it maybe a sort of an emotional gravity, to me running in the door soaked in sweat, being crazy, I wanted to be able to do that buffoonery, but still have an emotional core.
We were at a party recently, and you and I were having a conversation.
Yes.
And it was a great conversation, and you brought up the idea of your 5 favorite movie experience moments, movie experiences. Not necessarily your 5 favorite movies, but your 5 favorite movie experiences. Viewing experiences.
Yeah.
And you had a great one. You told me about the Titanic.
Yes.
And in this film, your character talks about maybe one of his, which was seeing Revenge of the Nerds with his brother. I was wondering if A, that was inspired by this own sort of conversation that you've had, and if maybe you could share another one of your 5 with us.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with this idea that a movie viewing experience is this subjective thing to who you are at that point in time, and how you can honestly dislike a fantastic movie because you went through a bad breakup, whatever it is, or you can love a god-awful movie, and those are great for me. And I did talk about, how I watched Titanic when I was, I think, 19 or something, and just cried my eyes out because I fancied myself a young Jack exploring the world. It's just so awful. And then another one that, really works for me and continues to work for me, this really over-the-top, corny movie called Somewhere in Time. It's a time travel movie about Christopher Reeves, he's this playwright, and on the eve of his graduation play, this old woman comes up to him and hands him a little amulet and says, "Come back to me." And he realizes that this woman was an old actress at a hotel, and he goes and researches it, and he finds out that he was at this hotel. He sees his name on a ledger from the hotel from like the 1930s. And he wills himself to go back in time to be with this woman he loves. It is so over the top, and it is so corny, but if you watch this movie when you're sick or when you're feeling vulnerable, you will cry your eyes out.
Was that your experience?
That's
that when
my
you watched it?
experience.
Okay.
Yeah, if you watch it when you are able and confident, you will laugh at it. And the sarcasm and the cynicism will overtake you. But if you're a little bit vulnerable, it'll knock you out, you know. And I just love that with movies. Like, on any given day, it can affect you in such a strange, different way.
Did the Nerds, was that inspired, that Nerds conversation?
The Nerds conversation was a little bit different. What I really liked about that is that we were talking about something very serious, and I wanted people at the front of this movie to know that this is serious subject matter, but it's okay to laugh at it. And I love that I drew a large analogy about my dead brother as it related to Revenge of the Nerds. It's so absurd, you know. And what was great too is because Mark Biggelow's character is, you know, is this guy who has such reverence for the death, and we were thinking, well, he needs a movie to reference too. That's the exact opposite of Revenge of the Nerds. And we're like, what is a movie that is 180 degrees diametrically opposed to Revenge of the Nerds? And then immediately we're all like, Hotel Rwanda. That's it. Like, the perfect opposite. And there's just these two guys across the room. One guy's quoting Revenge of the Nerds, one guy's quoting Hotel Rwanda. And I was like, this is a great way to set this movie up.
Awesome. Hey, well, last question I just want to ask you. I understand you're in Kathryn Bigelow's new film?
Yes, I am.
Did you already shoot?
Yeah, we're already shot and all done.
Awesome.
The movie's all wrapped up.
Awesome. And what was that like for you are you a soldier, or what's your role in the...
I can't talk about it.
Okay.
Everybody is contractually obligated to be secret.
Tight-lipped.
But as well they should. The movie's going to be very important, and you know, I will say that you know, you should expect what you've come to expect from Kathryn from the movies like The Hurt Locker. You know, this sense of realism and naturalism inside of a huge, you know, important story, and nobody can do it like she can.
Did you learn a lot as a director from working with her as an actor, from seeing her on set?
And we had a really nice, you know, dynamic rapport too. It was great.